It is extremely sad to see the chair of Parliament misusing her authority, her power, to muzzle members of Parliament and to hijack democracy. There is a fundamental difference between a meeting of the Central Committee and a meeting of Parliament. What we would or should have had today was a meeting of Parliament, which is much more formal and in accordance with the rules regulating the functioning of Parliament and the convening of meetings. In a meeting of Parliament, you have two rounds, a round one and a round two, and one can only speak once in each round. If you have questions after the first round or second round in terms of something was not clear, you can ask for a point of clarification so that the minister or the person in question provide the answers. Secondly, there's a speaker's time. There's a limit to the amount of time one can speak in a meeting of Parliament. There is no limit to the amount of time one can speak in a Central Committee meeting, because the purpose of a Central Committee meeting is to really, it's a working meeting, so to speak, to give members of Parliament an opportunity, particularly when handling draft legislation, that you can enter into a discussion with the whether it's a minister or whether it is somebody who is proposing draft legislation, or someone who Parliament wants to hear on a piece of legislation. So if you have a draft legislation regarding child abuse, for instance, that you would want to hear from school teachers, you would want to hear from parents associations, from social workers. So it gives you an opportunity to interact. In this case, if the format for a Central Committee was chosen to address the issues surrounding the purchase of Amelia Wilson Estate, it gives members of Parliament an opportunity to discuss back and forth with the minister. Of course, not an argument, but it is more of a working meeting, and it does not have the same format as an island, as a meeting of Parliament. So if any member doesn't want to speak in the first round, because in essence there should be no first and second round, but if one does not speak in the opening of the meeting, it does not take away from you that you are not allowed to speak after the minister had answered any questions. Now, the proper procedure should have been, and there's no rule to that, but a proper procedure would have been, based on the request, that the minister makes his presentation on how far is government, or what are government's intentions with the purchase of Amelia Wilson Estate. However, government opted to get questions in the beginning. I had no questions to ask at that point in time, because I wanted to hear from the minister what the developments were. There was a court case. The court has decided that government has to carry out an agreement that was reached between, or a decision that government had taken to purchase Amelia Wilson Estate. Now, I have not been given the opportunity to speak in the second round, but you can rest assured that I will speak on this issue in the future, in the not too distant future, because I think democracy is not served well when we hear some of the carrying on that took place last night, the lies, the misinformation, including the minister, reading from a letter that I had written, or rather that I had signed. The letter was drafted by the ministry. I signed the letter, and the minister saying how careless and reckless I was because I did not even book it in. Lack of transparency, he said. Members of the National Alliance faction requested a copy of the letter. Lo and behold, members of the National Alliance faction did not get a copy of the letter during the meeting, but members of other factions supporting the government were brandishing the letter. And guess why the minister didn't want to share the letter? Because the letter has been booked in. The letter was booked in. The letter is recorded in the archives of St. Martin. Question as to if the Legal Affairs Department was involved in drafting the agreement. The ministry, we are not an island territory. Each ministry has its own legal advisors, and the legal advisor within the Ministry of Romy was charged with negotiating the agreements with the lawyers of the owners of the estate. The sector director, who was not present, because who did the minister bring as his advisors? His political cabinet. But the director of the sector director of the ministry, who is totally aware of all of the developments, who has been exchanging emails back and forth with the lawyers and or the owners of the estate, has conveniently not been consulted and or brought to the meeting. The minister speaks about several court cases that he is now faced with because of this decision of the court. Yet the minister fell short of explaining to the people of St. Martin which court cases. As far as I know, an issue of FOGA was mentioned, and the minister needs to come clean and explain to the people of St. Martin. After he blamed the former minister, my person, for entering an agreement which is not true, he decided that the FOGA project had to stop, and if the people did not close the trench, if the contractor did not close the trench by a particular Sunday, that he would have the trench closed at the expense of the contractor. The contractor then wrote the minister a letter via their lawyer because they said they were in their legal rights. The minister then realized that he put his foot up in his mouth, and the minister backed down, negotiated with the contractor to continue with the project, and that he would pay them for the work that they have done. I would not go into the details of it today, because as I said, there will be definitely a follow-up meeting on this issue, because I think the public have a right to know all the details of what has gone down. There are members of Parliament who are making use of the fact that in Parliament they have immunity, and they are spewing all kind of garbage and lies to the people of St. Martin, and this information is starting to live a life of its own. But I promise the people of St. Martin, they will hear the full story with all the details and with all the documents. I will not waive documents and not give them to members of Parliament. I will not waive documents and not make them available to the media. So when there is a follow-up meeting and I be given the opportunity to address Parliament and through Parliament the people of St. Martin, the full details of all the developments will be put into proper perspective. Conveniently, yesterday, now there is a release from the Harbour that they support the purchasing of Amelia Wilson Estate and sustainability and this kind of thing. All of these things will be put in proper perspective, and then one would see that the person behind the acquisition of the Amelia Wilson Estate and even information that was not shared yesterday, but where meetings were held in which I think up to a tune of 20 million was offered for the same estate. So it indicates that there are persons in Parliament who are hell-bent to acquire the Amelia Wilson Estate, contrary to what was stated every meeting for the past years, going back to 2007, I believe, that government will pursue the purchasing of Amelia Wilson Estate to have it as a national park for the people of St. Martin. That there are those who are hell-bent to commercialize the Amelia Wilson Estate at all cost. And therefore, while they are throwing their rocks, hiding their hands, and having other members of Parliament doing the dirty work for them, I promise the people of St. Martin all of this and more will be exposed, but we will do so in a meeting of Parliament. Yesterday I would have done so. That opportunity was taken away from me to address Parliament, but as I say, the chair lady and the rest of the coalition factions can run, but they cannot hide. The information will be shared with the people of St. Martin.
My response is